an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 2, Episode 13. Can Josh take a leap of faith? In this episode, I'm only just realizing why the episode is called that, because it's a different type of leap of faith than what I thought. This episode's a lot. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this episode. I think I'm going to double check, actually, now that I'm saying this, that we are pretty far along in terms of commissions. Let's see, today's the 9th. Oh, no, I lied. The last commissioned episode is on June 26th. So if you guys are interested in more of this, I am booked well into, I think, the end of August, might even be September by now. So y'all are going to want to get on that, because Megan has been carrying this show for probably a full season at this point. And yeah, that's going to be almost 2 months break. So just FYI. I am floored at how this episode goes, because I had really been unsure how they were going to handle this. I wasn't sure if the wedding was going to go off at all. I thought it could, and that would still make for a really interesting story. Marriage is often treated as like the end of the matter, and it's not at all. I mean, anybody who's gotten married knows very well. So it wouldn't have been out of the question for them to get married and then have to deal with what that means. But I really am shocked at the fact that Josh doesn't show up because he's decided to become a priest. What a weird... I don't know what to make of it, you guys. Like, it's not like they haven't laid the groundwork for the fact that Josh is, I don't even want to say religious, because that doesn't even feel quite right. But it's I guess it's true. He is pretty religious, and he's just, that's been of interest to him. And you know, I have sort of joked a lot about the fact that he is definitely not particularly intellectual. And to me, becoming a priest requires, like, I would think, some, like, interest in scholarship. I think that's part of the deal. So I would never really peg Josh as somebody who would want to become a priest, because that feels too much like school. And I wouldn't think that he would want to do that. There is the fact that Josh does not seem to know what all being a priest even means. So maybe I've just put more thought into this than he even has, which is a distinct possibility based on his history. But I just, like, I don't see the Josh that we have gotten to know, who is hooked on the ladies, deciding to just stop fucking altogether. This is him doing his, like, a very extreme version of cold turkey, where he's like, oh, I know, I'm using women as a crutch to solve my problems. And if I want to stop doing that, I need to put myself in a place where I cannot. But the thing is, Josh, you still can. It's not as if somebody flips a switch. You have to make that choice over and over again. And you don't need to become a priest to make that choice over and over again, buddy. I feel like he's sort of doing, like, he's trying to do like a rehab thing, and also maybe going to try and treat this as therapy. And he needs to just actually go to therapy is what needs to happen. But what a mess. And I mean, I have no idea what to expect next season now, because it seems like it's going to be set up to destroy Josh is going to be like the theme. But I feel like that's not going to be a sustainable like mission. I could be wrong about that. It's just such a, it all depends on how they decide to handle Rebecca's breakdown. I mean, there's no way to talk about a plot where the bride gets basically left at the altar than without talking about the Sex and the City movie, which I don't know how many of y'all have seen that. Sex and the City is problematic AF, and it's the kind of thing that I like less and less as I revisit it. And the movie is a particularly terrible thing. I won't even talk about the second movie because that's just... But the movie, Carrie is left at the altar by Big. And they did something that I admired a lot at the time, and I still do. They really show the fallout afterwards of having her coming home to an apartment filled with wedding gifts that she has to return or figure out something to donate, because she just wants nothing to do with them. Figuring out how to cope with the fact that word was spread through the city because she's fairly high up on the social chain that she was going to get married, and her photo appeared in like a prominent magazine. All of this stuff that really spreads the humiliation out and around. It's a very different situation, of course, from Rebecca, who this is her friends, and pretty much only them that we know of right now, who are aware of how this went down. But Carrie, when she is left, we see her sort of give up on living for a little bit, and her friends have to step in and try and revive her, essentially, is the word I want, because she is kind of sleepwalking through her life after, in just this deep state of grief. And I really kind of want Rebecca to have that time, because she's so unwilling to deal with complicated feelings that she will latch onto an oversimplified solution. So her deciding that she's going to make it a mission to destroy Josh Chan, while completely understandable, and I'm not even really against it, is a band-aid and a distraction. And she is not going to get better and feel better from doing that. I mean, it may help. It might. But I just want her to stay at her therapist so bad. Oh, Rebecca, won't you just, though? All right, so I'm going to go through this episode from the start. It is her trying to get in contact with her father. And this whole episode is all about how her father was not there for her, continues to not be there for her, and takes advantage of her when he can, and does not at all give her the time of day. It is heartbreaking. Her dad reminds me of a less funny version of like Jake Peralta's dad on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And I have absolutely no doubt of any kind that this dude exists. My parents, thankfully, are not this kind of like neglectful. And I just can't imagine the damage it does to really believe that you are the reason your parent left, because it comes out later that she very much believes that she is too clingy and drove him away. And he does not protest. He does not correct her. He doesn't try to comfort her or reassure her that that's not at all what happened, sweetheart. What do you even mean? Because that would require that he care about her in any way. And I really hate watching this kind of clear pattern unfold, because her going for dudes who are unavailable is extremely predictable in terms of psychology. But you try and explain that to somebody, and until the thing about our patterns that's so frustrating and annoying when you're younger is that people will tell you you're doing a thing and that it follows a certain pattern, but you haven't done it enough yet in your life to really believe them when they say that. So you have to go on and make the same mistake like 4 or 5 times before you are finally able to see that that is a pattern for you. And that's why so many people have these sort of like awakenings about who they are around age 30, because they have gone through enough of their life by then to look back and be able to see patterns finally, because they had not done enough. They had not lived enough yet for there to be the evidence, you know? And I just feel so bad at the way that she talks about all of these dudes leaving her. And it didn't really occur to me at the time when Greg leaves how much that would feel like her father abandoning her, because he like does not tell her, you know, like it didn't even enter my mind, to be honest. And it should have, because that's a really 1-to-1 ratio. I mean, that's direct. So yeah, she's like asking him if he'll go and eat with her or have coffee or something. She doesn't even like say anything specific. And he puts her off, saying that he has work calls, which like, no, you don't, dude. You were working on a remote construction site in Alaska, and now down here in West Covina, you're still taking work calls for things. I just don't buy it. I don't believe it. And she, of course, is hurt, but doesn't actually call him out on it at all, because her standards are absolutely in the toilet. So she has the lowest possible bar for acceptable behavior from him. And she makes excuses, and that's what you do. When you are a child who has parents who have disappointed you or just proved to be insufficient in some way, you make excuses. That's the way you cope with it. You tell yourself that maybe your expectation that they do XYZ, maybe you were being unreasonable expecting that. You know, they're really busy. I don't know. I'm making this all about me. It's not about me. It should be, though. You're their child. It's your wedding. But sure. And eventually you will get to a place where at first you say that stuff because you genuinely believe it. And then you start to say that stuff out of just like reflex, and you don't really even hear that that's what you're doing anymore. And by then the reflex is to expect nothing, which they will give. I promise. They are great at giving nothing when they feel like that. So it is just really tough to see her like trying to explain away why her dad isn't like a disaster, trying to be okay with less than the bare minimum. And the thrilled, ecstatic Rebecca that we see greeting her dad and hugging him for a long time at the door. It's one of those moments that I want so badly for her to be able to actually enjoy. And yet, I know that this isn't going to wind up well. And she's taking this photo to commemorate this moment with him and Josh standing next to each other. And that is going to be like, that's the kind of picture after something like this happens that you print out and burn. And her lighting that other dude's house on fire, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that should happen again. Apparently, her lighting houses on fire when she's angry and burning, you know, paraphernalia from an old relationship is very much in her wheelhouse. That is something that she just pretty consistently does. So, okay. Oh my God, I forgot. We have the moment when she's looking at the veil that Paula apparently made for her, hot glued on all of these little crystals. It looks really, really similar to the veil that I had when I got married to Brendan. I don't think I'm doing a veil this time. I haven't really decided. But she is so thrilled and is telling Paula how much she cannot believe this is happening. I am marrying Josh Chan. And she does this like jump like she's about to like scream for joy, and it transitions into a metal, like, what a rush to be a bride. It is really something, guys. It's pretty fun. This is like this is something that I kind of want to play when I'm getting ready to go down the aisle. Like, maybe I'll play this while I've got my hairdresser doing my hair or something, and she can just be absolutely fucking mystified. Erica says, I felt bad for Naomi in this episode. Oh, that guy Robert, he was played by the same guy who played fucking Parker from season 4 of Buffy. I don't remember who Parker is, sorry. Is Parker the shitty boyfriend that nobody cared about? Or that was Riley or something. Megan says, I cannot tell you how pleased I was these came out before you got married. I mean, honestly, this is like there, and there's another song a little bit later that I kind of was feeling also. But yeah, we will get there. So this song is pretty fun. The energy behind it is so hilarious. And then we go to her talking to Josh. He says, he expresses his desire for this to mostly be over with, which is certainly something that a lot of guys feel. And while I definitely understand that, I just wish that guys could hear how that sounds to somebody who is putting every waking second into planning the thing. You sound incredibly ungrateful. Shut the fuck up. For serious. Like, I mean, I cannot emphasize enough how much, if somebody else is doing literally everything, you need to not talk about how much you're looking forward to it being over. You just don't get to. The person who is doing all the work, if she expresses that she's looking forward to this being over with, fine. You, not a word unless you are doing just as much or more as the bride, which is almost never true. And to a point, I understand that a lot of guys just don't care the same way that women are brought up thinking about getting married. Like, it is something that is instilled in us by society and by oftentimes our own mothers. That is something that we grow up fantasizing about, not necessarily because of like the marriage itself, but because we wonder what our party will look like. Genuinely, that was like my whole thing. I wanted basically a circus until I was like 20. When I thought about getting married, I literally wanted like fire breathers and sword swallowers. I am not kidding. And so, to a point, I get guys not being as invested, but you're going to reap all of the benefits of this sick party that she's about to throw. And even if you're like funding a lot of it, the planning is really the hard part. I mean, that is such a nightmare. Guys, I've been trying to meet with my wedding planner for literally 3 weeks now, and we cannot seem to sync up because she had to take a day job due to COVID ruining her business. And so she keeps on being like pulled in on projects at the last second and not being available when she said. It is just trying to talk to the planner, and I can't even get that. It's just so tiring. So anyway, he says that, and she says something about how I'm so excited that my dad is coming, and I know that he is going to walk me down the aisle, and she says basically, like, I know he's going to stick around for it. He's not going to abandon me, just like you're not going to abandon me. And Josh gets this look on his face, and it's like, what? And she's like, nothing. That was a weird thing to say. And I was like, oh, God. That was the first, like, red flag for me when she says you're not going to abandon me. I was like, oh, man, is he? Because that felt like what the show was leading towards by saying that. but I just could not get myself to like look at that. I just didn't want this for Rebecca. I didn't want her to be hurt like that. It makes for a really great story and wild episode, but it sucks so much. Rebecca has just been put through the ringer, and granted, most of that was her own doing. That's the worst part. And she would admit that, you know. Just this fucking proposal, though. I really want her to find out that her mother was the one who pushed Josh into this. Like, I need her to know. I just do. And it's not even necessarily that I'm angry at her mom. I understand where she was coming from in a way, but her mom is so controlling. And it couldn't have blown up in her face in a worse way. And I really want Rebecca to find out that that Josh proposing as quickly as he did was a result of somebody manipulating him and him being afraid of looking like a failure in front of people. I don't want her. Because you know why? I feel like that would help explain how he could have abandoned her like this. I feel like the part that can be so difficult when you are betrayed like this is being like, I thought we were on the same page. I thought this was what you wanted. You're the one who proposed to me. I don't get what could have happened, and this confusion. That's often the hardest. So if she gets an explanation that he wasn't even considering proposing to her, it was her mom that put that into his head, I think that could be kind of helpful in terms of explaining that maybe he wasn't as ready as he thought, and making it feel a little bit less like I misread everything. It was all in my head. It was definitely not all in her head. He decided to propose. He seemed stoked about the wedding up until this whole thing with Robert. So I guess I want her to find out, because I feel like that'll mitigate it a little bit. And I'm not sure if that's even true. But I feel like for me, it kind of would. It would, of course, make me very angry and focus a lot of my rage on my mom, which she might not necessarily deserve, but like she deserves it a little bit. Her mother is, you know, she is who she is. So I'm trying to like figure out, okay, so then we have the moment where she's standing in front of the mirror and she's looking at this veil that she's got on from... And I was a little surprised that she tried that on in front of Josh at all. I thought that was something very, very top secret that you don't do. But whatever, it's fine. She tries on the veil. She looks in the mirror. She says, this is what happy feels like. And then all of a sudden we cut to a 7 years ago Rebecca, who looks... She has a similar look, but is... just not as put together looking in this shot. And the veil she's wearing is very cheap and wrinkled. And there's a guy here who says, you look so pretty in that veil. And this dude is giving her the kind of like look that for me, instantly, I saw his face and I was like, he does not understand the significance of her wearing this veil. You can just see on his face. The way he said, you look so pretty in that veil, and that's all he said. This man does not understand what is happening right now. But we don't find that out until later. It just seemed really clear, like, something's real off right here. So she says, oh, Robert, because she's having this sort of flashback. And Josh immediately is like, the fuck did you call me? And begins to obsess over who Robert is. She makes up some Pretty Woman Erin Brockovich story to try and explain it away, thinking that will be the end of it. But she has put a seed of doubt in Josh's mind that begins to grow, and Josh goes out looking for answers, and the answers he gets don't add up at all. And so he doesn't know what to do, because he's starting to wonder about... And the thing is, one could say if she didn't call him Robert, none of this would have gone wrong and he would have still walked down the aisle with her. I tend to think that is true in terms of the short term. Probably if she had not mentioned somebody named Robert, he would have gone ahead and married her in the next 2 days. And then later, something else would happen that would make him suddenly begin to be like, oh my God, did I do the right thing? This kind of reaction to something that is that sort of like innocuous is a symptom that something else is going on in your head. He wouldn't panic like that over something so simple if there weren't a feeling in his gut already, in my mind anyway. And I don't know, I would really like to see that other timeline and how that would go down, but that would mean they'd have to be married by the time it all blew up in their faces, and I don't want that for Rebecca either. Everything sucks all the time. So yeah, he goes and talks to Daryl, who does not like, and I'm not even trying to shit on Daryl here specifically, because I got so like anxious watching the scene where Josh is trying to press him and ask him questions, because I just wanted Daryl to play along. I wanted Daryl to pick up on the fact that Josh was asking him something really specific in a particular tone, and I wanted him to realize, oh, you know what? I am going to have to kind of cover for Rebecca and play along with whatever this weird thing is that she said, and then I'll find out later what it was even all about. But Daryl is sort of like me. I will definitely have moments in, and this has happened, and I'm failing to come up with like the example, but I know it has, where people will sort of like do that kick you under the table, nudge you, stare at you, and try and get you to understand that you're meant to say a certain thing. And I have not done it. Oftentimes, because it was the same situation as with Daryl. He was not in on what went down at all. If somebody tries to get me to help them support a story and they have gone over any of it before, I will retain that and remember, oh, okay, I need to like not spill the beans when they bring up such and such. That I can do. But I'm not good at picking up hints on the fly regarding basically a conspiracy or secret that I'm not even a part of. I'm not. So I have been the person that kind of just blurted a thing out and then realized that I had fucked up everything for somebody. And granted, what I said was the truth, and sometimes that's what really should be said. But at the time, I felt like a real fucking schmuck. So I feel you, Daryl. And like, I wonder if he's going to realize later what it was that Josh was asking him about. But that just seems like such a non-factor at this point. So yeah, we go to like the little, stag party that's being held in the middle of the day for some reason. And he got shot glasses for everybody that says Rajashika Chabunch. And they are all talking about the big day and getting married. And White Josh says something about how he doesn't really believe in marriage. He said something kind of like under his breath that Daryl noticed. Best of luck to the very lucky couple. And White Josh says, yeah, good luck, in this certain way that gets Daryl's attention. And so he asks him, and it turns out that Josh doesn't believe in marriage. He doesn't see the point of it. He feels like if you like are in a relationship where you care about somebody, then that should be enough. And he understands the concept of having kids, but marriage is not something that's important to him. And it doesn't, for him, play into any like desires or hopes or dreams. And Daryl is crushed by this. He winds up sort of coming around a little bit later because he has decided that he's going to focus on another big giant step for them to take together. But I can understand, you know, White Josh says something like, you know that. And Daryl's like, I literally do not know that. What do you mean? Why would I know that? And that is something that I've had in relationships where somebody like drops kind of a bomb about like their perspective, and then they act like they had this conversation with me before, which I definitely would remember. And I just related to Daryl a lot throughout this episode. That's all I'm saying. Oh, Erica says Parker was the dude Buffy slept with who was shitty and never called her. Oh, that guy. Okay, his eyes are ringing a bell now because that dude had amazing eyes. Remember the beach trip when Daryl said if Rebecca wanted him to cover for her with a story, she should tell him, and he would. I just realized this is probably an extension of that moment. Good call. I cannot believe Valencia okayed Rajashika Chibunch. I am certain that was not run by Valencia. Absolutely fucking not. Because if it were, they would not be just plain shot glasses printed with like black Times New Roman font print. But yeah, so this scene, like, that, it ends with fucking Hector being such a weirdo about his mom, and I hate it so much. I hate it so much, you guys. Oh, everything with Josh and his mom, it is done in just the right way to not feel like the kind of creepy that makes you feel gross for laughing at it, but to be the kind of creepy that it's almost endearing, and yet you really are just like, you so need therapy, though. They really managed to find that line. That is a fine line, you know? Jesus. So then we go to the rehearsal dinner. That's the one. And Valencia mentioned something about the father-daughter dance to Rebecca, and Rebecca had not heard about this being a thing. I really like these moments because I know there are people out there who are going to be like, how does she not know about the father-daughter dance? Are you kidding me? Those people take for granted that everybody knows about wedding culture because they have families that they have gone to weddings, or friends, or, you know, like people who either when they were growing up helped plan things or were involved in things or went to family weddings. And when they got older, were involved in them as well, or they had their own wedding. I went to like 2 weddings before I turned 21, I think. 2, maybe 3. They were very non-traditional, but except for one. And when I started to plan my first wedding, I was absolutely overwhelmed at how much of a given it seemed to be to so many people that you do things a certain way. And it's just treated as like, well, traditionally. And I'm just like, traditionally to who? Like, there's, first of all, this, there's an understanding apparently, but nobody I've talked to knew this, that you like never, that if you are giving a wedding gift, it is meant to be at like the price of your dinner. Your gift should be equal to what the bride and groom had to pay in order to host you. Which to me is like, why? Really? Like, it just, that's so transactional to me. Then there's the whole, like, you know, the father-daughter dance, the groom and mom dance. I mean, there's so much about before the wedding even, and the way things are supposed to go down with like the maid of honor and the best man and all the jobs that they're meant to be in charge of, which is just too much for one person. I mean, tell me how a maid of honor is supposed to pay for a whole bachelorette party. That is such an unfair thing to put on a person. Everybody can pay for themselves and you can coordinate and maybe foot the bill for like one particular thing. But do not plan a big night out and volunteer your friend to pay for it. That's insane to me. I would never dream of doing that. And I would feel such obligation if somebody did that to me. There's just a lot about wedding culture, TM, that is treated like that's just how it is. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I hate it. So her not knowing about the father-daughter dance was just like, it was a moment that represented for me the many times that I stumbled across traditional like rules and I could not believe what I was hearing. Megan says, I get the not knowing about traditions. I, for instance, assumed my husband knew to tell his parents about the rehearsal, and he did not. That doesn't seem like it's about tradition. That seems like he just didn't do his job. That feels like a pretty basic thing, Megan. I don't feel like that's on you at all. And Claire says, oh, I heard that rule and I hate it about the paying for your dinner, basically. How are they supposed to know what your catering costs? Exactly. I think you're supposed to, like, just go in with the assumption that it's about $100. And, I mean, it might not be at all, or it might be way more than that. And just using that as any sort of measures just doesn't seem, I don't know. Erica says it definitely feels like it's tacky. That's the word. Tacky. I've never heard that maid of honor is supposed to pay for the whole bachelorette. That's ridiculous. It is. It's insane. Gretchen says, I knew about the bouquet and garter toss thing from pretty early on in my memory, but I had no idea about the putting the garter on whoever catches the bouquet thing until I accidentally caught a bouquet at a wedding. I was 17. Oh, yeah. And that garter thing only was at the one wedding, the one that I said was traditional. They did that at that wedding, and they never did that at any other that I've been to. Since then, I've been to several. So at this point in my life, probably I've been to 7. And I have never seen that but the one time. And it was a Spanish wedding. It was my brother. And it was a very, like, traditional sort of Catholic church wedding. And they did it there. And that's it. So there's shit like that people will say is real traditional, but, like, nobody does anymore. Because it's weird. It's just a weird thing to do. Megan says, I don't think his family did rehearsals, so he doesn't know they were about. Oh, I see what you mean, though. So, well, yeah, a rehearsal dinner is sort of a weird thing, too, because basically what it is I'm going to have my wedding tomorrow with everybody, because that is how, like, those are the people that I'm obligated to invite. But I'm going to have, like, my real friends and family that I am actually close to all together the day before, and we're going to do our own thing without having to include the people that I don't care about that much, but I just needed to, like, ask because that was sort of in the contract. And I know it's not really, but that's sort of like the vibe of it. Gretchen says, it was deeply uncomfortable. I legit felt bad for the grown man who had to put a garter on a teenage girl. He basically just put it around my calf. Gretchen, my brother's wedding, when they did it, my sister-in-law is from Chile, and her family, so many of the men were so beautiful. And the woman who wound up catching the bouquet, the guy was gorgeous and she was really cute. And he put the garter on with his teeth and went all the way up her thigh. And that was one of the first moments in my life where I felt something. And I was just like, oh, damn. Did you see him put that shit on with his teeth? Word. And that is burned into my brain, that moment. But yeah, it is really such a weird tradition. There's so many things. Like, I'm not going to do a bouquet toss. I'm not doing that. I'll toss something else. What'll I toss? I'll toss a throw pillow. And whoever catches it is going to be the first one to take a nap. Anyway, all right, back to the thing. So she greets her dad, is way too aggressively excited. It's embarrassing for everyone. Josh meets her dad. She takes a photo of the two of them together. And then Naomi has to come over and just be really awful. And the thing is that her dad is awful. Absolutely. 100%. But I just want Naomi to, like, try to keep in mind that this is her daughter's event and to just be a human being. Make an effort. If he decided to provoke her and she responded, that's fine. But she comes out of the gate swinging here. And it's just not, just don't right now, you know? As somebody who got married and had both my parents at my wedding when they had not spoken to one another for like 4 years and had a very, very, what's the word? They did not have an amicable split. It was uncomfortable. And they were both on their best behavior. And it was still agonizing, the tension It was just really bad. I can't imagine if one of them kept on fucking poking at the other like this the whole time. I would have killed one of them. I would have killed him. I mean, yeah, don't get me started. So, while I definitely feel for Naomi in terms of the fact that this guy is a piece of shit and she has to see him again after he completely like walked out of her life and screwed her over, just make it not about you for like a second, Naomi. Can we do that at all? Oh my God. Erica says, I want a bouquet toss at my funeral. Whoever catches it gets to die next. All right. Why not? So she, oh my God, I forgot about how Nathaniel shows up, and he got invited by her dad and is just talking himself up over the fact that he like got her dad here. And I really loved later on when her dad tries to turn to Nathaniel like they're buds, and like Nathaniel's going to give him his flight back. And Nathaniel just tells him, I don't think so, bucko. Go get some fucking Delta. And this is when we see Josh continuing to try and sleuth and figure out what's going on. And Rebecca's dad unwittingly reveals that there was something going on with her schooling. That initially she got into Harvard and she wound up having to switch schools for some reason because something happened. And it wasn't until, because, you know, I'm watching this, so I'm pretty engrossed. And it wasn't until like a bit later that I was like, oh my God, I bet it was a professor. And that makes total sense. Rebecca is such an intellectual. She's searching for a father figure. She's going for men who are unavailable. So yeah, a married professor sounds like exactly her fucking speed. Yep, that seems right. And Josh gets just enough here from this conversation to make him be a little bit paranoid again, but not really enough to justify how obsessive he gets. Meanwhile, Rebecca and her dad are trying to do like a dance rehearsal, which she shows up to in her full wedding gown. And the teacher is trying to get them to like channel experiences that they had in their life together to put into the dance, which doesn't feel real true to me. It feels like something that we had to do in order to point out the fact that they didn't spend time together at all. But this results in him finally asking her for money, and it smash cuts to Rebecca with red-rimmed eyes and no makeup on, sitting in front of her therapist. And her therapist is really so great, because when she says he wants money from you, you can see her therapist 100% is on Rebecca's side. As infuriating and in denial as Rebecca is, this woman can see what's happening and understands, and isn't like, she's trying so hard to lead Rebecca a little bit down the path she needs to go down. And the sympathy on her face as she realizes what this fucking trash bag just did, it's genuine, you know, she's trying to help. She's really good. So yeah, she tells her, I'm very glad you called me. Maybe some good can come from this. Maybe now you can see that your father's behavior in the past has set a pattern for you. Seeking the love of men who don't fully love you back. Men you have to pursue. Men who are taken or emotionally unavailable. And, oh God, you guys. It is such a... Again, with like patterns and whatnot, for me, I have said before, I think, that I have always gone for men who are workaholics and who I have to pursue not in their affection, but I need to really fight for their time because they always have other shit to do. And I constantly have to like be okay with being number two in their lives. And it's a really tough thing to cope with and deal with, and to know that shit was like done to you. You didn't choose this pattern. You grew up with a thing that felt normal and comfortable, and you automatically go out and seek normal and comfortable without realizing that your normal and comfortable is in fact incredibly toxic and unhealthy and bad for everybody. And I just, poor Rebecca. Abandonment issues, man. They will get you. So she just yells because we get like the flashback to this dude, Robert, who she's making out with, and he stops her and tells her, you know how much I care about you, but we can't see each other anymore. And you see the absolute shock in her face as she says, you said you were going to get married, that we were going to get married, that you were going to leave your wife. I went to the registrar's office today. I dropped out of your class. There's no conflict anymore. And then I went to a drugstore and I got this cheap veil. And he says, I tried, but I can't. And that is really one of those like fucking sentences. I tried, but it's not even about trying, dude. Just admit you don't care about her that way. Don't, like, just say it. Fuck. And so she yells, Robert, no, to which her therapist just went, what just happened? And Rebecca does not even realize that she said this out loud. And as she tries to sort of push Rebecca on this issue, talking about how she had a dissociative episode, Rebecca then begins to panic about her father leaving and decides to rush out, buy him a bunch of Father's Day cards and a bunch of gifts, and go to his apartment and beg for him to stay. Not even his apartment, his hotel room. And it is fucking awful because she apologizes for being the way she is as if it's her fault, and he does nothing to contradict her. And it's awful, and I hated it so much, and I just want him to die in a fire. Meanwhile, Josh is trying to get out of Rebecca's mother what happened with this Robert guy. And she tells him that Robert was a dog. Not to bring it up because it makes Rebecca really upset. When she explains to him about the dog, he then says, okay, but what does that have to do with Harvard Law? And she basically yells at him that he has the jitters and he needs to knock it off because he is just going to make this harder, and for no good reason. She doesn't need somebody who has the jitters right now. Honestly, it's one of those moments that like I want to see from her mom, of being like protective of Rebecca, but I can't even enjoy it because it's all about her keeping Josh from leaving when she's the one who set this into motion by convincing Josh to propose. So I can't even really let myself think that she's protecting Rebecca. I feel like she's protecting her investment. You know what I mean? And I feel bad, but like that's genuinely like the vibe. So then we cut to fucking Trent. And he has bribed a person to get Rebecca's past in an envelope. I don't know where he's at. I don't know if he's supposed to be like at the like registrar's office and is getting like her school information. Like, I don't know where he's at that he got this, but his plan is to go and break up the wedding and convince Josh not to marry her by dropping this bomb about her past, which hints to me that he knows about this, but I'm not even sure if that's true. The way that he behaves once he hands it over to Josh, leads me to believe that maybe he hasn't even really read it all. But I can't think that's true because he's so obsessed with her. Of course he would read everything. If anything, this motherfucker made copies and he kept one. So I guess he must know. So we go to wedding morning. And Rebecca is really excited, and Valencia is packing up her dress and has her little headset on and the whole thing. And Rebecca is floating. She is so excited. And meanwhile, Josh is really not feeling like this is the thing to do. It's awful to watch how completely thrilled and excited she is when we so rarely see a truly happy Rebecca, and then see him slump out really, like, obviously in pain to a point. Like, that's really what it is. He just looks like he is hurting. And the two next to each other, it's awful. It's awful. I hate it. So Father Bra comes over and is talking to him about what he's like, his pattern is, and tells him, your pattern is to go to the next pretty girl to make you feel better so that you don't have to face what you're doing. But you're not doing that right now. You're sitting here and thinking through the way you feel, and that's major progress. You need to go and talk to Rebecca because she is the person that you have decided you are going to face life with. You've chosen her. So if that's who you've chosen to face your life with, you need to have a conversation with her about the way that you're feeling and your concerns and maybe suspicions or just unanswered questions. And Josh seems to really take that to heart and is going to do that. And just as he is walking out, that is when Trent turns up and really ruins everything. Meanwhile, Rebecca is at the venue and she is singing a kind of medley of different songs that have occurred over the past 2 seasons. And it's all about how, you know, Rebecca, you've done it now, and it's like you've ruined everything, you stupid bitch, except it turns into something good, the hero of my own story, rather than the villain in my own story. And it's actually really well done and makes the whole thing even worse because she is genuinely happy now, but for so many of the wrong reasons. Like, it all ends with her saying, everybody will love me and I'll never have any more problems. And it's just really tough, guys. It's tough. So we have the fucking build up as we realize that Josh is starting to genuinely get cold feet. Like, he's supposed to be at the venue and he's talking to this girl and it's the girl that I had said, oh my God, is he going to fall for her now? And they kind of toy with that and get him to realize that he is doing the fucking thing that Father Bra says he does. And I appreciated a lot that he realized that the pattern was genuine and notices it happening, but it leads him to the very wrong conclusion of what to do. And we see him somewhere that looks like it could be the venue, dumping the file on Rebecca into a garbage can. And it gets me thinking he has decided to set all of that aside and go through with it. Because it looks like he's at the venue. They knew what they were doing. These fucks. They knew. Ugh, I hate it. So, I don't have a ton of time left, so I'm going to focus on the reveal of what exactly is going on. Father Bra rolling up, and all of them, I think it's Valencia is the first one who says he ran off with some other girl, didn't he? That's just such a Josh thing to do. And he says he is with someone else, but not in the way that you think. And we cut to Josh, who is knocking on the door, as it turns out, of like a priest's quarters. I'm not even sure what you would call this. And asking him for the cool t-shirt that the fucking Father Bra was wearing at his bachelor party. And it's so mean-spirited to do it this way. And Rebecca basically rips off her veil and goes sprinting outside to the very edge of this like cliff that is meant to be a spot for a wedding ceremony, I would expect. But there's no railing or anything. Can we just talk about that really quick? That's a really bad situation. I don't feel like they're going to have their insurance rates must be crazy high, because not having any sort of barrier there feels like a real bad move. But it really looks like she's just going to throw herself off. It really looks like it. And when she's looking down, you feel that she's thinking about it. She's not, it doesn't feel like she's seriously thinking about it, but she's thinking about it a little bit. And we get to see exactly what happened in this flashback moment, where this dude who rejected her tells her, it's over, let yourself out. So it's clear that she's in his house somehow. I don't know how she's in his house and he leaves her there. That just never feels like a good thing to do when you've just dumped somebody, is to leave them alone amongst your property. But that's how it goes. And so she piles up a bunch of his like most precious possessions, is the vibe you get, because she grabs a couple of books and some papers. So I'm going to assume that there's like a thesis he's working on, maybe, if he's doing something, like, who knows. But she just pours a bunch of whiskey on it and burns it, all while wearing a Harvard t-shirt, BT dubs. And smash cut to her being sentenced, and this judge saying that she is going to have to get some help in order for this to not be put on her record. And he says something about how the way that the dialogue works is that it's all lines from the song, from the theme of this season. She's just a girl in love. She can't be held responsible for her actions. I have no underlying issues to address. And then we see her, and she is at a inpatient facility getting given medication under supervision. And I don't think that we knew that she had actually gone to a facility and like basically gotten really intensive therapy. And it opens up a whole new window into who Rebecca is and what she's gone through. And it makes it all the more frustrating that her mother is so hard on her, because you just really want her to be like, do you not see how fragile she can be? Like, dude, chill. So we come back. Rebecca almost faints, and Paula catches her because Paula is the best. She says something about how it's her fault that they don't love me. And Paula is like, fuck that. Absolutely fucking not. Don't you dare say that shit. Those pieces of shit are the reason. And the biggest one responsible is your absolute trash pile of a fucking father. And her dad's all, oh, I don't need this. I'm going to leave. And I really wanted her to put stop payment on that check. Honestly, guys, I just really want her to put stop payment on that check. I feel like we can all agree that is the absolute least that he deserves. Please, girl, do not pay that. So yeah, he tries to be like, I'm out of here, and walks away in this like, I'm really going to stick it to you and make you beg for me to stay. But instead she says, good. And she turns around and looks at him, and behind her is Heather and Paula and Valencia, looking like the fucking avenging angels. They are backing her up with fucking fury in their eyes, man. They would tear him to shreds right now if she asked them to. It is the best. I love it so much. They all look so fucking furious. I love it. I love it so much. Girl gang forever. I never want to see you again. And he just says, fine. And then says, you're crazy. And she just says, a little bit. And it's pretty good, honestly. I liked it a lot. So then Paula says, all right, so we can go key his car. We can go fucking toilet paper his apartment or his house. What do you want to do? And Rebecca says, no, we aren't doing any of that because it's not enough. We are going to destroy him. And Paula says, what did you have in mind? And that's a good friend right there. Is that the smart move to make? Destroying him? Maybe not. but your friend just got left at the altar. Get on board. Wherever that train is going, you better be on it, and you better be wholehearted about it. Because all bets are off with that kind of shit. If I wind up arrested, so be it. You know, that's kind of got to be your attitude. So, yeah, that's a hell of a fucking season finale. I didn't even realize it was a season finale, but there it is. I have no idea what to expect. I mean, now Rebecca is free to fuck Nathaniel. That's one thing. I mean, I kind of don't want that. On the other hand, I'm curious. He's so infuriating. And I feel like now that Josh is out of the picture, there's going to be something's going to happen where she's going to either have to come to grips with the fact that, you know, fucking Nathaniel is a super bad idea because that's more of the same pattern. Or Nathaniel's going to realize that maybe now that Rebecca's actually available, he doesn't want to sleep with her anymore. Maybe that was part of it for him. I do not know. But that was a really good... I can't wait for Owen to see this episode. I really wonder what he's going to think. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap up. Don't forget, if you want me to continue covering this show, you're going to have to commission some episodes because all I have commissioned so far is up to episode 2 of season 3. And I am just going to really quickly check again, but I'm pretty sure I am booked right now into the first week of September. So yeah, we'll need to get on that. Oh, Megan says the recap is next episode. That's right. So I'm only booked into the first episode of season 3. My bad. So yeah, all the more reason, guys, help me out here. And hopefully y'all can do that. It's unspoiledpodcast.com/shop. And it would be just a classic TV episode. All right, guys. Thank you again. Thank you, Megan. Thank you to all of you for coming and hanging out with me and watching it with me. That was really fun. And I will see you soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.